a similar number of people, and it was a good opportunity to bring a group of people who, some who had been involved in reconnaissance activities for 20, 30 years, other people who had never been involved in any kind of extreme event reconnaissance, up to a common level in terms of what they need to function as a group, collecting data and posting it to a community. Since that workshop, things have changed mostly from the social media IT side that allow us to elevate the game again. So the kind of reconnaissance report you might have seen or worked on in the 1980s or 90s is very much a thing of the past. And what we really want to do today is elevate everyone to a point where you're collecting useful data, you're contributing the best data set that you can to the effort. We have some action items for you to do so that we can try to do some sort of crowdsourcing this afternoon where you collect information and then we'll all post it to the same Google Plus community. So I've seen iPhones, Droids, iPads, a few laptops. A few of us are still old enough to use those as a regular thing instead of our telephones. So take any one of those devices and take a picture of this screen so that you have it on your phone. And then what I'd like you to do is first either set up a Gmail account or use your non-UW or federal Gmail account. In other words, you have to use a personal one that's not managed to get yourself upgraded to Google+. So first, get a Gmail account, then upgrade your account to Google+. Once you're in Google+, which is an app you can have on your iPhone or your Android or on your computer, I'm going to want you to search for, in the Google Plus communities, GEER Workshop 2014 and ask to join it. And then I'll steadily have you all join, and then you're ready to participate. Let me show you what that looks like on the page. So this is the Google Plus community that has been set up for this workshop. This is the text that's largely in this report. It's basically just copied and pasted in here. You could read it down. It's the agenda for the day. And this is my account, Google Plus. I just use the GEER icon. In Google Plus, you have all of these various apps that are available to you. So I want you to go to the one that says G+. Once you're in G+, there's a home page. And I want you to go down to Communities. In Communities, you would do a search here for GEER Workshop 2014. I'm already a member in that workshop, so I'll just click on it. And we'll come back to this page. So if you could work on that in the morning, then we'll be ready to do the exercise in the afternoon. The main thing is that everyone's carrying now a device in their pocket that allows you to collect a track log, geotag your photos, and directly upload them to a community that can visualize all of this data at once. Right? So it's a way for us to all get a sense of what the other people are doing in the community. The agenda is on this first page of the GEER handout. In the morning, we're going to just tell you about the basics of why do we do post-event reconnaissance. What's the motivation for it? What are our objectives and goals in going out and collecting this data? For the geotechnical and the geologic community, we're largely an empirically based community, right? We have our models and our theories, but we have as an underpinning of all of it empirical data sets that validate those models. And extreme events are critical for doing that validation. So that's the morning through our break. Then at 10:30, we're going to have the OSO landslide webinar. That is the first of a number of webinars that GEER is going to host. This webinar is going to be available through a YouTube link to people listening to it in the US and outside the US. When we get down to the question and answer period after 50 minutes of talking, the two speakers, Scott Anderson and Joe Wortman, will be here all day to answer your questions, but will probably be leaning towards the people who will be emailing in or texting in their messages, because they only have this 10-minute window for answering them. So if your question is not answered in that 10-minute window or 15-minute window of the question period, just save your question and catch them afterwards. Okay? We'll continue on with this informational in the morning. We'll break for lunch, and then we'll do a field exercise outside. The field exercises really give you a sense of, well, what would you do if we had an earthquake or an eruption or some event that happened, a landslide event that happened today, and you were just thrown out into the field. What would be the good practices that you would want to be using in the field? This is not going to be a very complicated exercise, and it's not going to be taking things to a very high level. Actually, we want to have a good common base for everyone practicing. So much of the motivation will be that everyone has a few things that they need to do that are something you're in control of and you understand. Once we get back in this room, we'll try to very quickly crowdsource our data set up onto this community and see how it looks. And finally, at the end of the day, we'll talk about some closure aspects to reconnaissance. So first, we'll talk about tools that we won't have in this room today, advanced tools like terrestrial laser scanning, remotely sensed data, the capture of shear wave velocities, more geotechnical quantitative values using surface waves and non-invasive methods. That's very useful for reconnaissance. And now the sort of budding use of unmanned autonomous vehicles for capturing imagery and LiDAR data. And finally, we'll talk about what does that final reconnaissance investigation report look like? What are the elements that are critical in it, and how do we manage the data flow? So that's the introduction for the day. Any questions before we start? Most importantly, I have two sons, so this comes up daily. The bathrooms are across the hall, and you can access them through this front or the back door, and you have to cross the bridge to get to them. At lunchtime, there is a food court down 3 floors down, and that will be available to you to choose the lunch that you want to have. Okay, with that, John?